Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new TEAM therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello, Rhonda.
Hello, David, and welcome to our listeners across the country and around the world to the Feeling Good podcast, episode 318. Today we're doing part 2 of our personal work with Mina. I'm going to turn it over to you, David, to explain what we're doing because we're doing things a little differently today.
Sure. Our last session got cut short. It was kind of done on an emergency basis, and we didn't have sufficient time, so we decided to pick up today, which is 2 days later. And I asked Mina to repeat the brief mood survey so we could see how she's feeling now. And her scores were similar, maybe even a little bit worse. And I asked her also if she had any improvement due to the empathy that we did last week. And you were just giving us a little summary. The reason I was wondering about that is because there's a lot of emphasis on empathy. And I've always felt that empathy was necessary, but not a huge thing in terms of causing recovery. And certainly my research and the research of a lot of other people has kind of supported that. And it looks like you've had a pretty tough couple of days, and you were mentioning that at your university, which we won't mention, just to protect your identity, that you've been trying to get the university to take a stand and announced, that support for the protesters in Iran, as well as the fact that there are many resources for students from Iran or others who may be feeling traumatized and disturbed by what's going on. And that at least so far, your efforts and those of others have not been successful, that you've been running into resistance, and that made you feel some increase in hopelessness and maybe even feelings of anger and frustration. And you also mentioned to us before we started that you've been feeling, as you reflect back on your statements in our part 1 on empathy, you've been feeling ashamed and embarrassed and saying to yourself, maybe I didn't say the right thing. Maybe my statements weren't accurate. What will people think about me if they hear this, and things like that. So it sounds like you're continuing to have a really hard time, and I'm really sad to hear that. Tell us a little bit more about that, and then we'll continue. You also mentioned that you might have a different goal for our session, which is really good. So. It's over to you, Mina, and then we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, you captured it really, really well, David. Even though you and Rhonda really empathized last time with me, I feel like the general larger world and community, and again more so like where I work and where I want to contribute, I feel that I'm not being supported or heard. Not just me, but other people who are either from Iran from Iranian heritage, or just like you said, people who might be traumatized by the news based on their own experiences. And what we are asking isn't really that much by saying like just condemning the violence and also providing a list of mental health support for students and staff and other people who might be affected, faculty, healthcare providers.
And that kind of reinforces the feeling of helplessness that you were talking about in our part one, when you were a young person in Iran, both when you were a little girl, you were alone in the apartment with your younger sister, and the Iran-Iraq war was going on, the bombs were going on, and you felt terrified, incredibly terrified, to the point of having fantasies of just jumping out of the apartment window and ending your anxiety. And then as a teenager, feeling a lot of terror and anxiety and anger, which of course you couldn't express from the in terms of the morality police, and fear of getting arrested and jailed and beaten and worse. And it's that same theme of being frightened and horrified and angry, and yet helpless to do anything to change things. And are you feeling a little tearful right now?
I am, yes.
Tell us what you're feeling right now.
That how alone it was, and again, not just for me, but for other kids as well. So I remember I was a big fan of Michael Jackson, and it was the time when he was singing, "We Are the World" with other singers, or later on, there's this song about they don't care about us, and I really wanted to write him and say, like, what about us? Like, what about us kids in Iran? And no one sees us, no one hears us, our voices don't get out. And still it's happening today, that with the internet being cut, and we just don't hear people. And it's kind of frustrating when even when we do have a voice and we ask for help, most of the time, again, in my instance, in this situation, is like there is not even a kind of a rational reasons, like this is why we are not doing it, we are not issuing a statement. At least with all the efforts that's been made, that could have been like one. I'm sure they have good reasons, but they could be transparent about their reasons. Up to like, why is it not a good idea to provide a supporting statement, or as many other institutions have done. And I also would have to say, like, my experience, unfortunately, in Iran, in terms of like being shut down and pushed down, has been very similar to where I work right now. Like I haven't been as triggered in my life as working. So there are some parallels in like my experience of work here as I was in Iran as well, that maybe that's even more triggering for me. As David well knows, I've struggled a lot with not having a voice or power, or being able to contribute in the ways that I want to. So again, there are a lot of parallels in that's happening.
So what you just said was very important, because your anger and feelings of inadequacy and frustration and resentment and helplessness were really full blown for years before this incident happened in Iran.
Right.
And trying to get ahead in work, and to find security for yourself and for your husband, and that you've felt in general like you haven't had a voice, and so as we go on to develop our agenda for the session, that's something too that we could look at, is that you don't have a voice because the universe is cruel, or is it you don't have a voice because you're forcing people to take away your voice? That would be like the TEAM-CBT thing, and that might sound kind of blaming, but it's more about accountability and maybe finding out how to use the 5 secrets of effective communication to get more of what I want, and to form a connection. Sometimes if you have the the idea that, people aren't going to listen, and, they're, kind of a negative mindset toward people and anger toward people, which is totally, totally understandable. But that can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. On the other hand, there's certainly a reality out there. People can be barbaric and cruel and insensitive as well. But it's just something that we could add to the list of what you might want from this session.
I wanted to add two more things. One is you might remember that I was telling you that I had an eye twitch that it couldn't stop for about 6 months. And the day after I heard the news about Mahsa Amini's death, and I cried and I felt angry and I got upset. After 6 months of having consistent eye twitches, my eye twitch stopped, and it hasn't started since then. Wow. So it's a mystery of like what happened there in my brain or my nervous system that when this happened, when Iran event started to happen, my eye twitch stopped. We have been talking about hidden emotion before, so that came as a surprise. And the other part is that one of the reasons that I'm very scared of my anger is that I have heard from so many of my colleagues that there is nothing more off-putting and anger-provoking than having an angry woman, working with an angry woman. So I'm really always concerned about coming across as I do feel angry, but I'm always trying to find ways of like suppressing my anger and not showing it or not even bringing it up.
Could we add that to your daily mood log? Nothing is more off-putting than working with an angry woman.
Yes. And I haven't. They haven't told that in relation to me, but other women.
Mm-hmm. How much do you believe that thought?
I don't think that's the thought.
Oh, you don't think that's the thought?
No, but I'll show you how to find out what the thought is. You say you have concern about being seen as an angry woman.
Yeah.
And that's an emotion of anxiety. And what's the thought that triggers that fear?
That I will be rejected if I'm angry.
Okay,
or if I come across as angry.
Yeah, so
and punished. More importantly, I will be punished and rejected.
Yeah, if I express my anger or if I show my anger.
Yeah.
If I express or show my anger.
David, could we just stop for a teaching moment?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Tell me how you knew what your thoughts were that that wasn't the thought. Nothing is more off-putting than an angry woman. Because I love what you did, that it came down to a deeper thought.
Yeah. She's quoting you were quoting Mina, other people as saying this and saying you found that upsetting. And so that was not her thought, but a statement that came out of someone. That was an event. And then there's an emotion of anxiety. And then what's the thought that triggers that emotion? But another teaching point maybe that we went over really fast, and it was some point you were making, Mina, was a really intelligent point, but I think our listeners, it went too fast for them to grasp what you were saying. You said you had an eye twitch for 6 months, and you mentioned the hidden emotion model. And we know from the past that sometimes when you're angry and upset about things, you kind of sweep it under the carpet, thinking you're not supposed to feel that way. And then it comes out as fears of that you have this or that multiple sclerosis or some neurologic problem. And that when you express your feelings, especially your anger, when you acknowledge that there's something going on that you're upset about, and either share your feelings or get forced by David to express your feelings, that these symptoms suddenly disappear. and that you had this eye twitch that you were upset about, perhaps thinking, my gosh, there must be something in my brain, that's going off. And then when you cried, you heard about the death of the young woman in Iran. You got angry and cried. You were probably alone, or maybe you were with somebody when you felt and showed those feelings, but then magically the eye twitch suddenly disappeared, and we never came to the conclusion. And therefore, here's what this means, and you can tell us.
Well, I was alone when I read the news, and I cried in anger, and I think probably was loneliness, because then I saw that, I started reading like my friends' stories about how they've on social media, on Facebook, and they all were writing about their experiences of being caught, their parents being abused, saying almost like very similar things to myself. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wasn't alone. And maybe it was loneliness that I was experiencing. And through this, at least with like other Iranians that have experienced the same, I don't feel alone.
Sure. And I don't understand how feeling of loneliness has to do with the disappearance of your eye twitch. I wanted to focus on what does it mean that once you express these strong feelings, then the eye twitch disappeared. The bottom line, and therefore this shows what?
Therefore, it shows that it was a suppressed emotion or feeling that once it surfaced and I was able to express it, then the eye twitch went away.
Yeah, and that's the so-called hidden emotion model. And in this case, your feelings aren't necessarily hidden. They're just suppressed, consciously suppressed, because of your belief that you shouldn't be angry. And this theme has been a theme in your life, perhaps, from the moment you were born, or maybe it's something you learned along the way, that I'm not supposed to be angry. And I'm just bringing that up because there's a lot of healthy anger that one can feel due to Ukraine, due to Iran, due to America, due to all kinds of things, and that but a lot of us carry this message: anger is forbidden, anger is bad, and even if people wouldn't consciously take that position, they're taking it in reality. Even mental health professionals that I've trained and that Rhonda has trained have enormous difficulties noticing anger, their own or the anger of their patients, and have a kind of anger conflict phobia, and that might be something that would, where we could do some useful work conceivably. I think that Jill is a great model of this. She's very direct and never hides her anger, but always expresses it in a kindly and respectful way. And that might be something that could be useful, not only in dealing with the political situation, but just dealing with friends and relationships in general. That you've paid a lot of prices for feeling like you shouldn't have emotions or shouldn't show them. Loneliness is one price, and not getting support. There are many people who love you and respect you and care about you, and yet you sometimes, perhaps always, feel lonely and maybe would like to be closer. And so I'm rambling, so I'll just shut up. But in general, what I'm saying, as we're thinking about how we might be able to help you, although the external problem is real, the focus of therapy can be how you're thinking about things and how you're feeling and how you're relating to people. And the answer isn't always in taking, political action. That can be important. I think I've said on the show that I triggered a riot on the Stanford campus after the bombing of Cambodia, and I was captured and beaten by the police and put in handcuffs, and there were students rioting all around campus, and then I managed to escape, and I went into hiding, but they never booked me because they were so busy. They never had time to take down my name and whatever. But sometimes there is a call often to do things, and I think we're going to see a lot of action from all sides. The world is coming to a head. For a lot of violence, I'm afraid, and but that's a different thing from how I might be thinking and feeling, and so there could be a potential for a lot of personal growth and awakening. Now I'll shut up.
Well, I no, please don't. But what I wanted to add to what you mentioned is the fear, at least the fear for myself, is that anger is considered violence, and I will be perceived as a violent person if I show any hint of anger. So, or worse is like I am a violent person because I feel anger, and it's like it's worry to be a violent human. I think that's one that comes up, and then the other one is like anytime that I have, I do have strong opinions, and when I'm talking about them, often is like people like, wow, you're so passionate, and then they immediately change the topic or they withdraw, which I then know I've gone too far with expressing my emotions. So that kind of keeps getting reinforced about me need to be kind of this flat, like never kind of go into like the emotional state, because I lose my audience unless I'm actually up there presenting, which has made me a good presenter, but not in my one-on-one interactions with people. Right.
And so that's for sure something we can be working on if you want to do it. Those are easily solvable problems, although there's sometimes a pretty intense wall of resistance to changing them, and that might not even be your agenda for our work. But it's certainly an area that's caused a lot of pain and loneliness for you, which is unfortunate because you're such a beautiful person and you have so much to offer on so many levels, not only your incredible intelligence, but also your gentleness, your compassion, and your skill. And yet you are in prison, not because of the morality police, but because of the MENA police. And it would be so nice to see you coming out of prison and finding that it can be okay to be a real human being, but that there's some skills involved.
Yeah.
Because I have to say, I'm feeling so protective of you, and so kind of upset with the people that would say, sounds like in sort of a condescending way. I don't know if you perceive it that way. That's saying, oh, you're a passionate person, and then changing the subject so they can't really listen to you being, expressing your passion any further.
Yeah, definitely, it feels like that, and that's why I was saying that I feel like a bit of a parallels between like when I was in Iran and when I'm here in different ways of like more kind of a politely being put down as opposed to like directly.
And kind of trying to shape.
Yeah, and just as an aside, most therapists would feel that this is you're a victim and would side with you, and it's so sad that people are doing this to you. My own point of view is you're forcing people to do that to you, which sounds a lot less compassionate than what you're saying, Rhonda. But I actually call that reverse hypnosis, where patient hypnotizes the therapist into buying into your worldview. And while that can be fantastically compassionate, and I don't know anyone with more love and compassion than you, Rhonda, it can sometimes condemn the patient to continue to be trapped by the thing. Whereas David sounds like more like a kind of an ogre. Let's get rid of that guy.
No, I mean, I think there could be a balance. And what you're saying is very important, because I know that, Mina, you do not want to be a victim, and I don't want you to be a victim either.
Yeah.
And, I think what David is guiding us toward, looking at how you could be forcing people to treat you that way is going to end up being extremely powerful.
Yeah.
And freeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, tell us what you're thinking and feeling right now, Mina, and then go on to tell us you've been thinking about what you'd want to get out of this session.
Yeah. So what I'm feeling excited and hopeful about the skills that I can learn in ways that I can work with my anger. I also have to say, since you mentioned, since I was born, I've always been very quick to get angry. Even as a kid, I would go like turn red, and my brother is the same thing. Like anger is the first emotion that came up, or I couldn't put my toys together. I would get frustrated and, like throw my stuff, and, my mom would freak out. It's like, my mom is a very calm person. So my anger has always really scared my mom as this little, volcanic kid that she had. So yeah, and you're right that all my life my anger has been something that I've been like, no, that's bad, don't do that. But my brain does, the first reaction is always anger. I'm very quick to get angry and frustrated, and that scares me. And I would love to know what to do with that. I've done mindfulness, meditation, all of those things, but that doesn't really I cannot respond to my anger, but then I do suppress it, which then doesn't work.
Great. Well, beautifully stated. So can you tell us, well, first of all, how are we doing now on empathy?
A+.
Okay, great. And just to confirm, does because you said last time the empathy was not helpful to you. Is the empathy that you're feeling now also not helpful in terms of reducing some of your negative feelings?
I actually feel very hopeful because of what you have mentioned, and also I kind of like that you said, that in this particular case, because empathy does make me feel like a victim sometimes. And the fact that you said, no, like there are things that you can do. And it's like, oh, I like that. I don't want to be a victim. So, yeah.
Oh, great. So, well, thank you for that. So what would be your goals for our session?
So if there was a miracle cure, I would have wanted to, I know I can't change the fact that I am quick to get angry. What would be like, being able to use that in want to be able to prevent it from like becoming or this festering thing that causes all sorts of neurological issues, but also like, being able to either express it or work with it in a productive way and not act in a way that people would want to avoid me or get scared of me or find me off-putting.
Yeah, great. That's a good goal. And last time you had the goal of reducing some of your negative thoughts and feelings so you can be more productive at work and so forth. Have we dropped that goal now?
I would say this is more important because it is still kind of goes to the same. If my anger wasn't so paralyzing, then I would become more productive at work.
Mm. Okay, so then could we zero in on, as you know, we can only help you for 1 5 or 10 second moment of your life.
Yeah.
And so could we zero in on a moment when you were feeling very angry and perhaps interacting with someone that you would want some help with, a moment you thought didn't go very well and where you'd like to see how could I do that differently, like somebody you were interacting with and what they said and what you said next, kind of a relationship journal kind of.
Definitely. So the situation was, this is like one of the ones that I've gotten really upset at. at work is we were having a meeting with three of us, and it was my boss and one of the other leaders in our team and myself. And I was
a leader at your university. Did you say? I didn't hear what word
in our
you
team. A leader, another my direct boss, and then another leader in our team who is my boss's right hand person.
Oh yeah.
So we were talking about something and we were brainstorming, and I said I gave an idea, and this is on Zoom, and the lady who is my boss's right hand person meant to send a private message to my boss, and without realizing sent it to all of us, including myself. So I saw it, and it was a very condescending comment about she doesn't know what she's talking about and she needs to be coached, and we kind of shouldn't be doing this. So I saw that, and it was like
Okay, I'm writing that down if you can stop for just a second.
Sure.
And do you have a relationship journal there?
I can pull one up. I was just working on it yesterday for someone else.
She doesn't know what she's talking about, and we shouldn't be doing this. Was that the statement?
And she needs to be coached.
Okay.
Relationship.
I have it pulled up. Mina, do you want me to share my screen, or were you able to get it?
I got it. So let me just save it on my desktop.
And then what exactly did you say next?
Nothing.
Okay.
Complete silence. I could not say a word. Like all I could hear was my heart pounding in my chest, and like tunnel vision, and had a hard time breathing, and just said nothing. And then the lady saw what happened, and she apologized for the rest of the meeting. So like we had like another 20 minutes left, and my boss tried to change the conversation. And basically for the remainder of the meeting, I remained quiet.
Sure. So she apologized when she saw that everyone had seen the note, and then the boss tried to change the conversation, and you remained quiet.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then you have the relationship journal there?
Yes.
Do you?
Yes. Hold on, let me.
Have you worked with the relationship journal when you've had conflicts with people?
Yes.
You have on your own?
Yes.
Oh, good for you. You're unique. Most people don't. Now, why don't you indicate what her feelings were?
So this is the question that I have. Where do I start? So, she said, I'm sorry. And then basically I said,
no. Let's just go back to what the message that she sent to around to everyone.
So she
doesn't know what she's talking about, and she needs to be coached.
Right.
Great. And then what feelings do you think that she was having?
Anxious, frustrated, angry, worried.
You're going too fast. So let's do it row by row.
Okay.
You think she was anxious, worried? Any others there in that anxiety?
Nervous, probably frightened.
Okay, great.
Defensive. Next row.
Okay, but the first row is all zeros. She's not sad or blue or down or unhappy.
Unhappy.
She's unhappy. And then in the guilty, remorseful, bad, ashamed, she's feeling defensive.
Defensive, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then in the inferior, worthless, inadequate, defective, or incompetent.
No, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. Lonely, unloved, unwanted, rejected, alone.
I don't think so.
Embarrassed, foolish, humiliated, self-conscious, upset.
Upset.
Mm-hmm. Frustrated, stuck, thwarted, defeated, furious. I don't know why furious is in the frustrated column. Oh, well.
Oh, I think it is. It's one.
Yeah, I didn't make this version of the form, but it's not a biggie. But you feel she's feeling angry, mad, resentful, annoyed, irritated. Annoyed. Mm-hmm. And then any other feelings she might have been having?
I don't think so. Not that I can think of.
Okay, great. And then for step 2A, you can say what you said next, which would be nothing. And then what were your feelings?
Anxious. Well, I'll go with the last row because that's like my go-to: angry, mad, resentful, annoyed, irritated, furious, defeated, stuck, farther to, frustrated, embarrassed, humiliated.
You're going a little too fast because I'm writing them down, but I'm almost caught up with you. So you had 5 anger feelings, and you had all 4 frustration feelings, and then you also felt embarrassed and humiliated,
self-conscious,
mm-hmm.
And lonely, unloved, unwanted, rejected, alone. Oh gosh, yeah, inferior, worthless.
You're going real fast because we always write them down. If anyone's listening, you should write them down because then you'll have a much clearer idea of what's happening as we move along. Otherwise, it kind of goes in one ear and out the other to a certain extent. But you felt worthless, inferior, inadequate. You felt defective or
defective, incompetent.
Okay.
And bad, ashamed, and defensive.
Sure.
And frightened. I was really frightened because I always thought that she thinks of me as this. And part of me was hoping that I was wrong. So like all of a sudden when I saw like you have all these negative thoughts and these like you think I'm imagining someone talking about me this way and then actually seeing that it's worse than what you thought.
Yeah.
So I was like shocked and frightened. I think shock would be like another one.
Sure. And then on that and shocked, sure, that's a good one. And then on that column, was she feeling worried or panicky or nervous?
She?
Well, you're leaving it now. Your feelings. I'm sorry. Yeah, forget it. Go back down. I got confused. Yeah, you're feeling anxious and frightened. Were you also feeling worried, panicky, or nervous?
Yeah, I was.
And panicky. And then how about the top column?
Yeah, I would say depressed, down, and unhappy.
Great. Great. Now, before we go on, let's do a little outcome resistance, and then we could do some process resistance work. is this someone you want to get closer to and have a better relationship with?
No.
Okay, great. Thank you for letting us know. Is there anything else you'd like help with in today's session?
Well, I would like to know if there is a way of not being close, but having a better relationship. Is that a possibility? Is that
well, you just told me you don't want a better relationship with her.
Better relationship, but not close. So I don't want to be close. I don't want to kind of have I don't want to go for walks or like coffee with them. I don't want to spend too much time, but I do want that when we have to interact for our work, I want to have a better relationship.
Okay, I'll let Rhonda respond to that.
So it sounds like, and tell me if I'm getting this right, you don't want to have a friendship outside of work.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the kind of work colleagues where you have lunch with each other and you have that kind of emotional closeness, but you want to improve the relationship with her so that you have a better working relationship with her.
Exactly.
And then if in that, I understand that. I'm still a bit confused because I've never improved a relationship with someone I was in conflict with without feeling closer to that person. So I'm just worried that, positive feelings toward her could develop. And that's something you definitely want to make sure doesn't happen.
That is very true. Yes, it is.
So I wouldn't know how to deliver what you want.
Yeah, and that would be very similar to like a lot of other instances that I mentioned. For example, if I am working with another leader in our group, and I see your point that without having a close relationship and perhaps even having influence, you can't really go that far. But then, and this would be a parallel, like to kind of link it back to the situation in Iran too.
Right. And I just want to note that you say you're lonely, and at the same time, one of your top priorities is make sure you don't feel close to somebody.
Someone
the person you selected.
Me. Right. Yes. Who has repeatedly hurt me. So I have.
Well, we can't blame you for forcing her to do that over and over.
Yeah.
But it might be nice to bring tricks to conscious awareness.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I do. I realize that. Yeah.
Why do you think she might, treat you in a negative way repeatedly? Why do you think you're a victim?
Well, you've already told me it's because of the way that I treat her.
Let's look at that. Let's look at that right now. Are you willing to take complete responsibility for the problems in this relationship with her?
Sure. Yes.
But wouldn't that be unfair? Why should you have to, assume complete responsibility for this woman who's been so mean to you?
Well, I haven't so far for the past 4 years, and my life has been hell. So let's, what is it that you can't do the same thing and expect a different result? So, I want to try something different.
All right, let's bravely move ahead. Is that okay, Rhonda?
Yeah. Oh yeah, thank you. I'm just fascinated by how you're guiding Mina through this process.
Yeah, well, there has to be some trust. If I didn't have a little money in the bank with Mina, I might be in deep sh. What's that? Shoot.
Doo-doo.
Yeah. Doo-doo, as the Buddha so often warned us about. But at any rate, let's go on to step 3 of the relationship journal. Let's look at your response and see if your response was an example of good or bad communication.
I ignored the other person's feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely failed to express my feelings openly, and my attitude is not and has not been respectful or caring.
In fact, in that very moment, right, when
Exactly.
you were, you know that Robert Frost poem, Fire and Ice?
Tell me.
Some say the world will end in fire.
Mm-hmm.
You know that one? Some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and will suffice.
Yeah.
Mm.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, it's kind of neat. I went to Amherst College for undergraduate, and he would come there once a year and speak, because I think he had some linkage with Amherst College, and but at any rate, so what does your response to her communicate, and then what will she conclude? How will she behave? You said nothing.
Yeah.
What message does that give her?
That and this is consistent, like, you're so right that in every interaction it's just like a biopsy of like the bigger picture, that there is this kind of a power thing that we've always had since day one, that I've always like you're not my boss, and I'm not gonna report to you. I'm so it's always like I am definitely like putting her down.
Yeah, put that down in number 4, step 4. I'm putting her down, and how are you putting her down?
Well, one is by not acknowledging her feelings, by not expressing myself, and then basically the EAR, ignore her feelings, and my attitude is definitely not respectful or caring. I'm being very very rude in some ways.
Yeah. That, well, right. And then how will she feel when you ignore her feeling, don't acknowledge her feelings, don't share her own, refuse to talk to her?
Rejected, humiliated. I'm looking at the feelings again.
Yeah.
So I'm adding those: humiliated, perhaps from previous interactions, self-conscious, rejected. Do we have rejected here? I'll add rejected.
Yeah. Well, that she'll definitely feel rejected now if she didn't then.
Yeah. Right.
Will she feel angry?
Definitely angry, resentful.
Mm-hmm.
Hurt. Yeah.
And then if you treat her in a way that makes her feel rejected, humiliated. Oh, yeah, we got rejected twice. Angry, resentful, and hurt, and more. What will happen? How will she treat you?
Then she would retaliate. And try to because she's in a leadership role, she can't necessarily publicly kind of based on HR rules put me down,
Sure.
but she will find other ways of doing it.
So she'll try to put you down and treat you poorly.
Yeah. And
so your action will cause her to try to put you down and treat you poorly.
Yes.
So who's forcing her to treat you poorly?
Myself.
Yeah. Can you see that?
Yes.
And is that painful to see that? We're going to lose half of our fans based on this show, I'm sure.
No, absolutely not. This is fantastic work.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
Yeah. Is this painful for you?
No, it isn't. It's empowering, and I don't want to be a victim. So And I kind of knew it at the same time. And I should also say, you always talk about our dark side. I have enjoyed pissing her off a lot.
Yeah.
So, kind of, and it's funny. I more than like, it's kind of childish in some ways. That's very immature of me to do that.
Well, I think if half the people in the world had your courage to look at themselves, look at ourselves, our world would be a far better place to be. I mean, I think what you're saying is really, really fantastic. And that's what I call the third death of the self, the interpersonal blaming, the angry, entitled blaming self. And when I have to do it, I don't do it as gracefully as you do. It's very painful for me when I have to look at my own dark side. And I've had to do it a lot lately, to tell you the truth. And at the same time, it's brought me tremendous dividends in getting close to, even in our work environment, to the very people I was in conflict with. And unfortunately, as we talked over and resolved the conflicts, I ended up feeling really, really close to them and affectionate toward them, for which I apologize, because I know that's something you definitely don't want to have happen. It's kind of cool, don't you think, in a way?
Yeah.
Now let's just push on to step 5 here. Suppose we were to pull a Rhonda or a Jill Levitt or even a David Burns here, and using the 5 secrets, how might you respond to that comment? And that's something, of course, you can still do. You can take her aside and say, I've been thinking about what you said, and use a 5 secrets type response. But to our podcast listeners, you may be wildly objecting and say, Mina has every right to be angry at this mean, insensitive woman. And if you said that, you'd be right. And, we all have a right to be angry and to treat people in any way we want. And what we're saying is, if a miracle occurred and you decided to go toward love rather than toward hatred, which of course is a big ask, too much to ask of most people, aren't interested in doing that. They want other people to do it, but we don't want to do it ourselves. But since you want to do it yourself, it's kind of neat and refreshing. And so what might you say? And then we can maybe do some role playing and see if you can get up to the A level, and then see if you'd want to try that in your interaction with her. I mean, the formula would mean, and again, we're kind of in a kick-ass mode these days in politics. I heard some politician, I think, trying to become senator from Ohio, saying, you don't need an ass kisser, you need an ass kicker. Mm. And I think it was the guy whose drug company was promoting and is still promoting the sale of opiates to people. Kind of, if I've got the names right, I'm not much on politics, but I heard that on TV. And we're kind of in a world where everyone wants to be an ass kicker, and labeling any loving context, any attempt to see the other person's point of view and to come with humility and remorse and respect as kind of bad behavior. And religious leaders throughout history have failed to get people to stop doing that. I was raised Christian, and I think I know neither of you was, but that's kind of what Jesus was about. That's not what the Christian church is about. But that's what Jesus was about, anyone can say, love your best friend. It's easy to love Rhonda because Rhonda treats me great, but it's not so easy to love your enemies and treat them great. But let's take a crack at it. If you want to venture into this wild and woolly world of so-called enlightenment that everyone's so afraid of,
I definitely do. And I do want to mention again, to tie this back to Iran, this lady is the person who has brought the same feeling of anger, hatred, resentment that I'd experienced in Iran by the morality police, the same way that they were like telling me to cover up your hair.
Sure.
The same anger and frustration that comes up when
Okay.
like you not.
So
like,
now we're gonna befriend the morality police, because we all have that morality police person inside of ourselves. We all want to force people to behave the way we want them to.
So she is my morality police.
Yeah.
And so here I would say the disarm would be, let me pull up the my relationship.
We can take it one technique at a time.
So disarming would be, so my disarming, am I starting by when she apologized, or I would?
No, we're not dealing with that right now. We were just focusing on that. We can, our skills are very limited. We can only go for 1 5-second moment.
Okay. So, you're right. I don't know in this context what exactly I'm talking about, and I would imagine how you might feel worried and concerned about the consequences of me doing what I mentioned, and how
slow down, because I'm writing it down, and if anyone really wants to learn from this podcast, you should also be writing these things down so you can critique them and do fine tuning. You don't have to, but that would you maximize any potential benefit. But you said so far, you're right. I don't know exactly what I'm talking about, and now continue.
And that I do need to be. You mentioned that I need to be coached, and I would imagine how you might feel concerned and worried, and perhaps upset that I didn't get your thoughts about how to go about this, given that you have a lot of experience and a lot of political savviness to deal with situations like this. I really appreciate how you have always been so successful in navigating really tricky situations and have had our team successful. And I feel embarrassed and a little humiliated actually to read your comment that wasn't meant for me. And to be honest, I've always wondered, been worried about you having a negative feeling about me, or negative view of me, given how I look up to your experience and, as I mentioned, your political savviness. And I wonder how it's been for you to work with me. And I know I've kind of, have not always been very respectful and warm and kind towards you.
Right. And there's only one word I needed, but let me finish writing this down. And I really like what you've got here with you. You said you've been successful. I feel humiliated and thanking some other word about your comment. I didn't get the other feeling that you shared. You said it, but then it went too fast to get it down.
I've been
humiliated
about my stroking.
Well,
I feel statement.
You said you've been successful. I feel humiliated and blank about your comment. I felt bad about your negative view of me. How has it been to work with me, and so forth. But you expressed two feelings, and I didn't get one of the two you expressed.
I feel, gosh, no, I didn't write.
I think you said no. I think you said embarrassed and humiliated.
Oh, humiliated and embarrassed. Yes.
And upset. I should have said upset as well.
Okay, and yeah, about your comment. Great. And now, what grade would you give yourself? I'll read that, or you can if you wrote it down, Rhonda, and then we can grade it and say what we liked and what we didn't like and how it was.
I think I caught most of what you said, if not all of it. When you said you're right, within this context, I don't know exactly what I'm talking about. And I imagine you're worried about the consequence of what I mentioned. You know, I imagine you might be feeling concerned and worried. You said, I need coaching, and you have a lot of experience and savviness. You've been successful navigating tricky situations, and I feel embarrassed and humiliated and upset about what you said. I'm worried if you have a negative view of me. I wonder how it's been to work with me. I've been disrespectful toward you. I'm sure I didn't get it 100%.
So what grade? That was well done, Rhonda. What grade would you give yourself? And on that, an A, a B, a C, a D?
I would give myself something around like a minus. I find that it wasn't like when Rhonda read it to me, it felt a little disjointed, like it didn't logically. So I did like the different parts of the 5 secrets, and because I know what it is, but from someone who might be hearing it, it may not just make as much sense as I thought it might.
Well, it was also the way I read it.
What grade did you give it, Rhonda?
Well, I gave it a B+. Shall I say why?
Sure.
You know, in the disarm, you said, in this context, you're right. In this context, I don't know exactly what I'm talking about. And I think when you use the expression in this context, it took a little bit of the power away from the disarm. I'm going to say the one thing last. The inquiry was, I wonder how it's been to work with me. I would have said, a stronger invitation to say, and I'd love to hear more. I'd love to hear about it. To make it a broader invitation for her to talk to you. And then remember that one emotion that we've been talking about throughout this whole podcast that David says therapists don't like to say?
Yeah,
you missed that.
I intentionally did, because I know that David has mentioned that in the context of work, sometimes it's better to not mention angry. So then I mentioned frustrated and upset instead.
Who did you say was frustrated and upset?
That she was, she might have felt frustrated with me, and then I was upset.
She was
feeling. So I was feeling.
Well, I think what Rhonda was alluding to, that you didn't acknowledge she might be feeling angry with you.
Mm-hmm. She might be feeling angry with you.
Oh, got it. To say that she might be feeling angry.
That's something.
Is that okay to say?
Well, it depends on how you would say it. It's all in how you do it. But anyway, that Rhonda gave you a B+. I would give you I think an A-, although your B+ is more correct than mine, to tell you the truth. And the reason I'd give it an A- is because it's 1,000 times better than what you've been doing, and probably good enough to cause a breakthrough in the relationship. But we could find all kinds of ways to improve it, to get it to A or A+. Of course, one thing that is very important to you, not to express any liking or warmth to her, which you said was so incredibly important, puts a bit of a hamper on us, a damper. It is kind of like telling the fire department they're not allowed to use water. But do you want some tune-up suggestions?
Yes, please.
You want to start with some, or you want David too, or should we just do tag team, Rhonda?
Tag team.
Well, the way David does it and the way other people do it would often be different. And we're just going to give you, here's kind of some feeling. If I were to disarm her, I might I might, really, as Rhonda was saying, make it crisper. You say that I need some coaching, and as a matter of fact, I'm intending to get some coaching because I feel, as you know, very, very strong political feelings about my home country. I feel horror and anger and rage and fear and injustice. And to tell you the truth, I'm not good at expressing my feelings and my anger. And if I were to get some coaching, I would have to get it from top expert. And that would be you, because you've had a tremendous experience in this area. But I also feel that I've been very arrogant and standoffish in my relationship with you, and that I've really treated you with disrespect. I just sat kind of in angry silence in that meeting. And now that I realize, I think that I haven't always treated you with respect in the past, and I've kind of blamed you for the tension in our relationship. And now I'm suddenly seeing my own role in it, and tell you the truth, I feel ashamed and humiliated that I've been, kind of treating you poorly, and you have every right to be, kind of suspicious of me and anxious about me and ticked off about me. But if you had any inclination to share some of your feelings, even negative feelings about me, and how annoying I've been, I'm ready. I'm ready to listen, and I would consider it a privilege to hear what you have to say, even if you want to just kind of tell me off, because you're someone I think I could learn a tremendous amount from, not only on the political level, but on the personal level as well. So with that in mind, let me know what you're thinking and feeling right now. And that's a slightly different version, maybe not even as good as what you did.
But it's more genuine and closer to the reality of our, interpersonal. So mine was very superficial. You just went for the heart of it.
Yeah, right. I think without the heart, it's less effective. I know that I found myself being crabby in my working with some of the people I was working with. Occasionally I do that in the Tuesday group too, but and when it was pointed out to me, I had to tell them, I just feel really ashamed, and I was shocked at myself to see how I'm kind of like a jerk sometimes. And I didn't realize that. I wasn't aware of that, but it's definitely been happening. And I feel so bad, and I wanted to tell you that. And that meant a lot to the other people. It has to kind of come from the heart with humility, and even in a work context. And you can't force her to react in a particular way. You can just open the door. And to the possibility, I might not have done any stroking. I want to hear Rhonda's version too, but to say, and I have to tell you, I've always admired you, and I would love to have a better relationship. And I'm to tell you the truth, I'm taking full blame for kind of acting. As a kind of unfriendly person, the exact opposite of the way I want to be, and to tell me what it's been like to be on the receiving end of that. And then, I'd like your personal comments, and then I'd also love it if we could sit down and you could teach me kind of your approach to handling these political situations, which is tremendously important. How was that for an add-on? Or
I mean, yeah, I just feel like you're giving a masterclass in the 5 secrets, and the level of warmth that you're able to infuse in what you've said is just kind of mind blowing. It's like amazing. I mean, I said tag team, but I don't think anyone could say anything even better than what you just did. Although I'm glad that we're recording this so that, future people, we could listen to this over and over again and really learn from it.
Thank you.
Definitely agree. I was like, I don't know if I can match that at all. Like, I kind of first need to understand it more. It's like, listen to, like, it's almost like David decoded my thoughts, feelings, and then was able to speak like deep layers of my brain that I have to still unpack and reach to. I don't know how to describe it, but it was very, very deep and very correct.
Okay, well, let's try it. And Rhonda can be. Do you want to model it, or do you want to have Mina try again, Rhonda?
Well, I kind of would like to try it just as an exercise.
Yeah, take a shot.
Myself.
Absolutely.
But,
okay, so you're going to be your colleague, Mina, and you can say to Rhonda, who's now going to be Mina, I understand you wanted to talk to me. What's up?
So Mina, you wanted to talk with me. What's up? What did you want to say?
I wanted
to have much time, just be quick.
Okay, yeah, I understand you have a really busy schedule, and thank you so much for I'm really happy that you've found some time to talk to me. I wanted to talk about the last meeting where we met on Zoom, and you wrote that I didn't know what I was talking about, and we shouldn't be doing this at the meeting, and I needed coaching. And I just wanted to tell you, you're absolutely right. It was hard to read that because it was painful for me, and it was upsetting. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how right you are. I don't know what I'm talking about, and especially in this situation when we're talking about how to make a statement from the university about Iran, my feelings are so strong about what's going on in Iran. And I'm feeling powerless and hurt and angry. And I don't have your savviness and your experience in dealing with these situations. And I'm imagining in that meeting, you must have felt really worried about what I was saying and what I was proposing, and very reluctant to listen to me. And I'm wondering if you were angry with me because I was probably proposing something that might have harmed the university or didn't fit in with your much more astute understanding of the situation. And I also want to take some responsibility that our relationship hasn't been so great. And that is because of my arrogance and my kind of jealousy and about the relationship that you have with my supervisor. And I would really like to talk to you about that too. And what I'd love to do is hear from you what it's like to be in relationship with me and to work with me these past few years. And, with the goal that we would have a better relationship. I really want to learn from you, and you have so much to offer. And I'm wondering if you could tell me right now what you're thinking and feeling about me in this moment, and also about what was going on in that meeting and our future working together.
Okay, great. So what would you give that one, Mina?
I'll give it an A. There was one part, but again, it could have been true. It's just like, it's not my experience that I don't feel jealous about her relationship with my boss. I do have a really close relationship.
Okay. Yeah. I just threw that in.
Even better, perhaps, but that was just like off, but it could have been completely true. So that's just one.
I was just thinking about how you said, she's not my boss. I don't have to talk to her.
Right.
And if that came out as, I was just, assuming that came out of some jealousy. So that was incorrect. We could just toss that out. I would give myself a B+ because just similarly to oftentimes I struggle with closing it, and I felt like I was rambling. And
well, if you wanted to close it more strongly, I thought it was an A also. But when you want people to talk about negatives, I would say I'd like to hear you have so much. When you say I'd like to hear from you, you have so much to offer. It's kind of like saying, make sure you're nice to me.
I know, that's exactly what I thought.
But you say you have so much to offer, including telling me if you dare, or if you have the courage, about what a pain in the ass I've been, and maybe we could start there if you're willing, because I'm ready to listen. And I keep thinking I'm some kind of a victim and deserve better treatment, and now I'm looking at my own role for the first time, and I'm feeling shocked and ashamed. Something I've only just seen that you have probably seen over and over again for the last 2 or 3 years. And if you tell me what it's been like. Even though you're probably feeling nasty and pissed off and resentful and a lot of negative feelings, but I'm open to that now. I'd love to hear from you about that, and then later on, I'd love to hear if you're still kindly open to it to give me some coaching tips on what to think about when making political statements that will benefit everyone, not just the needs of Mina. How's that?
Gosh, gorgeous, brilliant.
Okay, well, it's easy to do it when your ego's not involved, I can tell you.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to give it another try? What did you like about, you gave her an A, what did you like about Rhonda's statement, Mina?
Also was very, there was no ego involved in there. It was very transparent and open, and saying all the things that are, so even though I don't, particularly have been feeling very, very hurt and put down by this lady, Rhonda's statements are all things that I truly believe and I can say about her. And again, it's like, it just shows like when your ego isn't involved, you heard the story from me and you know exactly how she is and how, but it's easier for you to say than it is for me. So it's kind of, that's fascinating that it's like my resistance and where I get tripped over. And then Rhonda was basically able to also, similar to you, David, say all the things that they're absolutely true.
Yeah, well, this could be a big breakthrough for you. You want to give a shot at it, and then we have to close off here pretty quick.
So, and then again, I'll listen to the audio, and I will work on improving it. So, you're right. You mentioned that I don't know what I'm talking about, and I need coaching. And in fact, that is exactly what I'm thinking, that I do need coaching. I always admired your experience, political savviness in dealing with really tricky situations and having us as a successful team and also achieving our goals. And I can't think of anyone better than like in terms of expertise to get coaching from than you. And another thing that I wanted to mention is I felt and I would imagine like how you have you felt worried and concerned about my plan, and also perhaps feeling a little angry and upset with me for not consulting with you and getting your input on this. And also I want to mention how I've been feeling, I was shocked by your comment, but then now that I think about it and I've had time to think about it, I have realized that how in our relationship I've been so arrogant and in some ways rude and disrespectful of you, and I feel embarrassed and ashamed of my behavior, and I would love to I learn from you and have and also hear how has it been for you in the past 2-3 years. I want to hear all about it and about your negative feelings that you might have towards me, and all rightfully so, because of my arrogance and disrespectful behavior.
Great. What grade do you give yourself on that?
Well, you kind of set the bar so high, David, that compared to what you did, I'll probably give myself a B because that's my aim. I want to say what you said.
Yeah, sure. What did you give it, Rhonda?
I thought it was so great. I would give it an A-. And again, David did set the bar extremely high, and the closing again was similar to mine. Yeah, I mean, you asked her to include her negative feelings, which I thought was really super of you to have done. And that even the tone of your voice kind of trailed off after that. Like it sounded much less like powerful. And I think that could be juiced up. Yeah.
So
exactly.
Just, I want to hear about your negative feelings. I know it's hard to talk about those things. But I wouldn't be a bit surprised if you've been pissed off at me and angry and annoyed with me and uncomfortable around me and tense around me, and for good reasons. That because I haven't treated you with the warmth and respect that you deserve, and I feel awful about it. I've just begun to realize that and examine myself for the first time. And so I'd welcome anything you'd be willing to share with me. Even the worst of the worst would be music to my ears or something. So that would just be, paving the way. But I would have given that an A because I thought it was just really excellent. And you don't need to generally, with most human beings, you don't need to be at some lofty level to get to improve the relationship. But I just thought it was great, and we've seen tremendous evolution. And this was very unexpected. And just so from a teaching point, that we often go into a therapy session with a preconceived notion of what's going to happen here. Like, oh, I'm a counselor, so I'm going to give weight loss advice, or I'm going to give vitamin advice, or tell this person to wash their eyes with, they have a swollen eye, with some baby shampoo mixed 1-to-2 ratio or something like
or even
that.
Because we talked about something last week, so this week we're going to continue that.
Yeah, exactly. And that if you go with the energy, it will often or nearly always lead you unexpected directions. And if you stick with that, you have a chance to really hit pay dirt. So before we close off here, and then maybe you can do the brief mood survey afterwards, and send that to us, and empathy scale and all of that. But tell us what this has been like for you, what your negative reactions to today's session were, and what your positive. Let's start with the negatives.
I don't have any negatives. I mean, in just all of your insightfulness, and you're just awesome, David. I don't find words to, and I'm not really like stroking or try to kind of, stroke your ego. I really, really mean it. Remarkable. It's amazing. I never cease to
it's a the death of the self is one of the best things, and that's what you were showing today, the death of yourself. I don't know how you got there, and I don't know how humans in general can get there, but it's so hard for us to let go of our anger, our entitlement, our narcissism, our anger, our pride. And I think Jill, a statement she made has been really helpful to me. And I've said this probably on the podcast before, but I was dropping her off at our house after some workshop we were doing or something like that. I don't know why, but she was just saying, I've probably said this 3 times on the show, but we were talking about how hard it is for people to get into enlightenment. And she said, yeah, and enlightenment is just realizing that we actually are kind of inferior shits or inadequate, and it's just like a bell went off in my head, and how wonderful that is, and how my whole life I've been trying to be special. And the universe keeps giving me signs. Stop doing that. It irritates people. And then maybe I'm getting so old now it's a little easier. But it's just so nice to not just to be very flawed and to share it with people, and that it really brings people closer together. And I know that would be awful if that happened to you, if you started feeling close to people. And I know one of your rules is don't make sure I don't have to get close to anyone, especially this awful woman. But I mean, for me, the people, say clinically, who I've disliked the most, and most of my patients I've disliked, I've liked. I've liked, but there have been a few that, really angered me, and I got angry with them and felt annoyed with them. And then when I shared and opened up about it, they became some of my favorite people, and it's a kind of a transformation that can occur. So thank you so much, and we hope that our listeners found it interesting and helpful. I thought it was an amazing journey you took us on. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you also from the bottom of my heart to both you and Rhonda.
Oh my gosh, I want to add that too. I feel so super happy and charged that we did this. And I didn't participate that much today because David was his typical, his very brilliant self. And just being able to watch your interaction was a joy and an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, Mina. Whoever you are in reality, it was great. So we'll see you all next week. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borovsky, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.